This was a speech originally given to RoRo, which is Ruby on Rails Oceania, which is a technical group that meets, and I would go there and occasionally give a presentation. Anyway, I was away for quite some time, and when I came back, they said, "Where have you been?" And when I told them, they said, "Oh, look, you've really got to come in and give us a look at your photos and a presentation about what really happened." I did that, and we recorded it, but the sound was terrible. And then subsequently that recording was lost, and I promised everybody I would remake it. Well, this is it. I have remade it. It's taken me a long time, but I finally did it, and this is it. This is my journey to Antarctica. When you look at stutter. We were going to go to, where is it? There's the arrow. There's the peninsula of Antarctica, and so we had to fly to Argentina. We were going to fly from there. And we're in Australia, of course, over here in Perth, and we were going to fly to Sydney and then fly to Argentina. And you look at it and you go, "Oh, that's a long way across, isn't it? Across the Pacific." You think, "Wow, that's amazing." Well, here's another look at it. The same thing. So there's Perth. There's Sydney, where we would leave from, and we would fly to Argentina, and then fly down to right down the southern tip, and then pick up a boat and sail down to the peninsula. Well, I'm a bit stupid, and everyone I spoke to said, "Rick, you actually fly from Perth to Sydney, and then you head due south, and you fly to Argentina that way." And it was like, "Oh yeah, of course, when you fly from London to New York, you go over the North Pole. So when you fly from Sydney to Rio, you go you go over the South Pole." They actually go slightly east or slightly to the side of it. Apparently that's so that if there is a crash, you can crash in the ocean and not on the ice, and you're more likely to get rescued. I think if you crash down there, the chance of being rescued from the Southern Ocean is almost as nil. So there it is, there's Antarctica, and we're going to be going just in here. It's a shame because on this other side, everyone says, "Oh, why don't you go from Australia to Antarctica?" We've got a good third of Antarctica is allocated to Australia, and we've got where is it? I think it's somewhere in there. We've got a base. Thing is, it's very much more expensive. They don't do them very often, so you have to fly out to Tasmania. You leave from Hobart. It's the same time frame, but they are not commercially available, and the only ones that are commercially available are the ones that go here, which is what we did, and I'll talk about that shortly. When I was researching what Antarctica looked like, I found this, which is very interesting, and I thought I'd show it to you now because everyone thinks of Antarctica as a continent, that it's twice the size of Australia. Thing is, if you were to scrape all the ice off, I don't mean melt it, I mean scrape it off and throw it away into space. So leave the ocean height where it is now, but take away the ice. That's what you'd see underneath. Even very interesting that the South Pole is actually in the sea, just like the North Pole is in the sea. So you can't actually really, if you get rid of all the ice, you wouldn't be able to stand on the South Pole any more than if you get rid of all the ice, you wouldn't be able to stand on the North Pole. There's the peninsula where we're going to be going to. So it just goes to show what's underneath. And something else to note is that all the ice that's over water, so here, all of this ice, even if it were to melt through global warming, wouldn't add to the height of the ocean. It's only the ice that's over the land that would actually then go into the ocean that would actually add to the ocean height. Interesting. So there's another view of the peninsula. There's Antarctic circles there. We'll be going we're going to be doing sort of a tour up and down here. I'll show that again shortly. So, we fly to Buenos Aires and spent the night in a very lovely hotel. Me and Dave, my travelling companion. It was the first time we'd actually, both of us, I think somehow, we either booked it or I don't think we booked it, but we must have been upgraded because we did it in business class. And it was a 14-hour flight, so we would have ended up flying up here. We followed up the coast, and then we saw it. Through the windows, we flew over the Andes and headed to Buenos Aires, and it was delightful. It's the first time that I've ever actually been in business class. And the seat comes up into a flat position and you actually sleep on a flat bed. Delightful. So we then fly from Buenos Aires down to Ushuaia, which is down on the southern tip of South America, which is in the Tierra del Fuego. You can see that this is Argentina, and then there's a gap, and then there's a little triangle there that's Argentina. All of this round here is Chile. So when we get there, you can see that that's all Argentina, and all of this is Chile. And when we arrive, we come to Ushuaia. There's Ushuaia. A lot of people, it's spelt U-S-H-U-A-I-A, so there's an S-H there. People pronounce it as Ushuaia, but it's Spanish, and there's no S-H in Spanish. In fact, the H in Spanish is silent, so it's actually Ushuaia. There's no SH, no PH, no any of those with an H, so their phone is spelled with an F. And this is Ushuaia. There's the Beagle Channel, and so this is we're in there, and we'll actually be sailing out through here and heading south. Ushuaia was originally there's some of the houses there. It gets bloody cold, and you can see from the rake on the roofs that the snow. We were there in summer, so there was no snow. But when the snow gets there, the whole place just grinds to a halt. That's showing it's very hilly, and during winter, people are not allowed to drive up and down these roads. They can only drive across the crossroads, like that one there. There's another one there, and the one I was standing on here. Because the danger is you just slide all the way down. So it is very hilly. Ushuaia is the most southern city in the world. It's originally was a penal colony, and us folk from Australia understand that the Brits would have sent out all of our criminals to the penal colony in Australia. Well, the Spanish did the same thing here, and the prisoners had to build their own prison, and it was extremely difficult for them to escape. And even if they did escape, where do they go? Which is why they chose it, just like Australia was chosen, and very, very difficult. Here's a view of the town. You can see that the mountains are there around the outside. That's that's Tierra del Fuego. It is every nut and bolt and brick and piece of glass has to be brought in. There's no manufacturing of any building materials. Interestingly, there's manufacturing, and that's what makes a lot of money. The Argentinians have given a special tax dispensation for any manufacturing that wants to set up in the area. And there's huge manufacturing complexes that assemble televisions and fridges, and that's where a lot of the money comes from. But of course, the secondary, biggest commercial enterprise is tourism. It is a particularly beautiful place. We arrived there, we got into our hotel. This is a photo out of our hotel. And next morning we went for a walk. And as we got down to the harbour, we looked across, and there was our ship. and that is the Vavilov. It's actually a very interesting beastie. It was actually built as a spy ship, but the Soviets brought down the wall in Berlin, and it was no longer needed. That's the academic Vavilov. The V shape is pronounced V in Cyrillic, so that's Vavilov. It was a remarkable ship, and as I say, it's a what have we got here? You can see all of the information off the plaque. It flies under the Russian flag, so all the crew were Russian. We didn't liaise with the crew particularly, although they were very nice people. Most of them didn't speak English. But we had a team of guides who did everything for us. It's a remarkable beast. That's the front I took. That's later on. All of these photographs are not in chronological order. They're actually in the order that I wanted to show off various things. You can see the aerials sticking up there. They are remarkable. They're everywhere. Look, this is all of the aerials down the side of the boat. They haven't taken them apart, and they're just there to communicate with and test the waters and send information, long medium and short waves. There was a sister ship, and they both did the same thing. They were both actually submarine hunters, and there we have more of the aerials. Just stunning. Most of which we couldn't work out what they did. I asked Dave, my travelling companion, who's a radio ham, and he was able to identify a few of the aerials, but mostly not. And you can see them. Look at them. They've even inside those little domes we think were rotating dishes, but we can't be sure. And you can see, look at this funny looking thing that is there. So the Vavilov actually built by the Soviets, or built for the Soviets, and very low tech, as you can see here. This is on the bridge. We were allowed access to the bridge at various times. There was a big light outside, and we would pass it on our way to the bar. And if the light was on, we could go in and see what was going on in the bridge, on the bridge. But it's the equipment. It's modern equipment, but it's not the computers that we really expected to see from a ship of such a recent build. This is down inside the engine compartment, and again you can see all of the. You just expect it to be so much modern. There's the engine control. We were given a tour of the ship. We were allowed to go anywhere we wanted except one room, which was the radio room, which was off. We weren't allowed to go in there, but we were allowed to go everywhere else. Dave did say he saw the door open one day of the radio room, and you could see inside, and it was full of computers and communication equipment. But once again, you can see, look, meters, gauges, old style gauges. So we get onto the ship, and we get into our allocated bunks. And this is it. This is our little room. It's for two people. Down the back that's a lounge. There's the top bunk. And down the below, you can't see, is the bottom bunk. So very sparse and space. You have Dave and I were together, and we were able to use this space, but you have to. It's the usual thing on a ship. You don't get a lot of space. However, the food was absolutely outstanding, and we look forward to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The whole idea was that we were going to be on the ship, and the ship was going to be our base, and we were going to be. Where are we? I've got it here somewhere. So it was going to take us. The whole thing was 11 days. It was going to take us a day to prepare, 2 days to get down there. We were going to be there for 5 days. It would take 2 days to come back and a day to disembark. So while we were down there, we were going to be 5 days down there, and there was going to be 2 sorties per day out onto the ice by the zodiacs, which we see in a little while here. And so we had all the comforts of a 5-star hotel. And we get up in the morning, and I think this is here is breakfast. And it was laid out just wonderfully, just fantastic. And then we do a sortie, and then come back, have a very nice lunch, do a second sortie for the day, come back and have dinner, and spend most of the evening in the library or the bar. So this is the trip, and you can see there we're back up to there's Ushuaia. That's the Beagle Channel. Those of you that know would know that Darwin travelled here on the Beagle, and that's why it's actually been named the channel. It's been named for Darwin's ship, the Beagle. So then we head down and we do the crossing of Drake's Passage. Yes, all the jokes about Drake's Passage have been known. It really isn't anything new. It does actually take nearly 2 days to cross at the speed we were going to be going. So that gave us an opportunity to research what we were going to be doing, watch all the movies, get all the training that we had to have, and the preparation ready for our approach. So there's Antarctica. So we left, and that's the Beagle Channel. You can imagine that place there, which is down there, so cold. It is Tierra del Fuego, land of the fires, but that's because of the volcanoes, not because of it's particularly warm. It's bloody freezing. And the Beagle, a small wooden boat. Ironically, the second journey of the Beagle, which is what Darwin was on, they were actually returning some Tierra del Fuego which they'd taken from the previous trip, the first Beagle, and they'd taken them back to Europe, and they'd put suits on them, and they tried to teach them English, and they'd hawk them around Europe, and meeting all of the highbrow people, and they thought, that was proof that you can take savages away and you can educate them. Interestingly, when they brought them back, they landed, they got off. Darwin said, "Listen, I'm going away for a week. We're going to do some research up the coast. We'll be back in a week." And they put the Tierra del Fuegans meet up with their fellows who were still half naked, but they were wearing suits and bowler hats, etc. When Darwin arrived back, they couldn't find them. They went to the house they'd allocated for them. It was trashed. And then when they did finally find them, they were back to their native ways. They were half naked, and they'd reverted back to the way that they'd be with their people and when they grew up. So it does demonstrate that you can't force people to change. We now know that, but in those days I guess they did. So that's the Beagle Channel. So there we are. So we head out and we're into the Southern Ocean, and we're travelling down, and we see our first iceberg. This is these are called tabular icebergs. Icebergs normally have about 1/8 of the ice sticking out of the water and 7/8 is underneath. These tabular ones are slightly different. They only have 60% under the water. I spoke to one of the crew, and he said this particular one, they estimated, was 1 kilometre wide. So from there to there is 1 kilometre. And the ice was sticking out, was between 80 and 100 metres high there. Well, if that means then that there's another 60% of that is underneath. So that means about here. So that is how big that iceberg is, with all of the amount under the water. And only that small amount is sitting on the top. Can you imagine how big that is? And they still didn't know how far back it went, back over that way. We're going to be looking at where icebergs come from later, but it just goes to show you that they're huge bloody thing. These tabular ones, these island icebergs, don't roll over, but other icebergs that are in the classic teardrop shape of an iceberg are extremely dangerous. Well, these are dangerous too, so shipping tends to stay away from them. We're about 15 kilometres away from that one. And the albatross. We saw the albatrosses early, and as we headed south, we saw them less and less. But they are particularly gorgeous. I sat there looking at this one for over an hour, and he didn't flap his wings once. And he was so close. I mean, he would look at me. He was obviously seeing me and knowing that I was on a boat. And he would swoop down and just hovering there and just flying along with me as I sat there looking at him. This isn't a shot of mine. This is from somewhere else. But these are called pintados. Again, they're just thousands of kilometres from nowhere, absolutely in the middle of the ocean. The southern Atlantic turns into the Southern Ocean, and it's the most remote waters in the world. And it's like, where did you guys come from? You know? And again, they just don't flap. I guess they couldn't, they saw. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to spend that much time down there. So when we're coming across the Southern Ocean, this is the Drake's Passage, and we'll be arriving. The way we arrive actually is absolutely fabulous. Well, it's a clever trick that they do, because they don't just turn up sort of down here somewhere and, oh look, there's Antarctica. You first see the island, and then you see another island, and then you go down between the two islands, and then you see Antarctica. So you've already surrounded by the most beautiful countryside. And then we were going to turn right, and we were going to go all the way down here. This was we would do all our sorties from here. The boat would overnight would travel to a new location. In the morning we'd be at a new spot, and then we'd do a couple of sorties, and then the next day we'd sail further south. As I say, it takes 2 days to cross, and we had to prepare. There's me. This particular photograph actually we'd actually been allocated our stuff. We'd got all the gear. I'm wearing one thin pair of socks and two thick pair of socks. I'm wearing one thin pair of gloves and my big thick gloves. I've got a t-shirt, a shirt, a jumper, and a jacket. And I've got 2 layers. I've got a layer of thin slacks, and then my jeans, and then the suit. This is called a wetsuit. You can't see, but I've actually got a beanie on, and I'm wearing my sunglasses, and then there's the thing. So we went, once we got our gear on, we went up on the deck just to check out how it felt. And there was a crosswind that was so savage that I'm actually hiding behind this bulkhead here to get away from the wind. It was so cold. And Dave had come looking. Everyone else had gone, and Dave and me were the only ones left on the deck at that point. And he'd come looking to find out where I was. We're rocking fairly heavily. I'm holding on for dear life. And he came round the corner and saw me and took a photo. When they're training us, they say, remember, as you're travelling around the boat, that's including the deck outside and inside, one arm is for you, but the other one is for the ship, and you must always be holding on, or be ready to hold on as you're travelling around. There's someone else who was there as well, and you can just see that they are cold, very, very cold. And so I returned the favour. That's Dave, my travel mate. Hi Dave, how are you? He's holding on, and he's cold too. But we were just checking out our equipment. We're both wearing boots, as you can see, but as it turns out, the best thing is, and they provide these wellies. It also means I can put another layer of socks on. And when I was finding my wellies, we went down to the place where all the wellies were, and I got down early because I wanted to have the same wellies every time. And so I grabbed one of only 3 pairs that were bright yellow, so that I could find them again. And when I took them off after each sortie, I would park them in one place so I could come back and get my wellies back. So there's my wellies. They actually turned out to be extremely comfortable. Obviously they're waterproof again, so as you're getting in and out of the boats, out of the Zodiacs, um, you're going to be getting up to your ankles in oceanic water, and it was going to be cold and wet, and so the boots, um, we had our boots for walking, but we never used them on this component of the trip because the wellies were so much better. This is where we embark each day. I said before that the Vavilov was in fact a spy ship, and here we're in the moon room. And when you're standing in the moon room, you can hear sloshing. You think, oh, bloody hell, the water's sloshing. And they tell you that that there's actually a hole in the bottom of the boat that leads right up to the moon room. And the whole idea is which is a roll, it's a cable, and the cable is about 2 kilometres in length. And they lower the end of the cable down in through the hole, and it goes out into the ocean, and they feed it out. And so as the ship is travelling along, it's now got a 1 mile long cable dangling out the bottom of it. As I said before, there was a sister ship also, and it was to do the same thing. And those 2 cables between them could find submarines. The whole idea was that they would be out in wherever they were. It could be the Antarctic or any oceans, working as a pair. One would ping, and the other one would pick up the signal. And depending on what the shape of the signal looked like, they would know where the submarines were, and so they could find them. But of course, it never saw service. Neither did its sister ship. The end of the Cold War happened before it could get put into service, and so it was actually converted to be used for tourism. And as I showed before with all the antennas, a lot of the equipment is just still there. So this was where we embarked from each sortie, and you can see all of that's the equipment lying around there. Those are the safety gear that we would wear. We would keep our wetsuits with us, but the safety gear would be parked in the moon room with the wellies because they're all wet when you come back. That's the moon room. And so as we're travelling down through Drake's Passage, we would go through the process of learning how to handle the equipment. And this is another component of that. These are the Zodiacs, and they are the equipment that we're going to be using to get to Antarctica twice a day. And we were explained how we were going to be embarking on the Zodiacs and what to do when we get onto the ice, and also on the way back as we come back. That's, if you look sideways on that, I actually thought I'd straighten that one up. Never mind. So you can see, in fact, there's Dave actually with his orange hat, going down the ladders that they would have, depending on the Zodiac would park next to it, and there'd be a big burly Russian at the bottom of the steps, and there would also be one of the guides, the guy there with the yellow hat, and you'd go down the steps. This was actually the other way, they're coming back, but the big burly Russian would just about hand you in, particularly the first few times, because obviously the whole thing's bobbing up and down. There was one occasion where I came back from a sortie and the ocean was bobbing up and down 4 or 5 meters, so you actually had to time it perfectly. You'd stand there on the side of the Zodiac and it would rise, and it was very easy because you then just stepped onto the ladder, but the big burly Russian grabbed you to make sure that you didn't fall off, which was fair enough. Safety was the issue. At the top of these stairs there was another guide who was checking you out, so they check your name off as you went out, and they would check you back in again as you came back. Very safety conscious. They were really serious about safety, and it was vital. Part of the training was what happens if you fall into the ocean. What to do. And basically explaining to all the rest of us that if one of us fell in, it was all our responsibility to make sure that we try and grab these people and get them back out of the water as fast as possible. We could see all the various equipment that they carried in each of the zodiacs. I had a GPS unit actually, which I was trying to use on when we were on the ice, so I could note exactly where we were, and it was the same one as that they had, which was pretty bloody useless as it turned out. It took over half an hour to get a signal from the birds. You need 3 birds, and you just weren't getting 3 birds down there. It was so far south. There we are again. So there we can see that's once again this is a disembarking. I think yes, because they're climbing up the ladder. You can see down the bottom, that's our big burly Russian, and that's the guide. He's just basically keeping it stable, but it was a very military exercise. You can see we're all sitting there, and we would actually slide up. So he would take one from each side to keep it balanced, and then as that made a hole, everyone would then slide up, and the same on the other side. So that guy would leave, and they would all slide up, and this guy would be next, but he would be there, ready to go. And then we go one from each side, so we're keeping the whole thing balanced. It was, yeah, we got quite good at it. I've got film right at the end of this. You'll see a particularly dangerous landing, which Dave caught on video, and it's remarkable. I'll show you that later. So there it is. This is our first departure. Of course, everyone's quite interested in seeing the Vavilov. Dave and I had seen it from when we were in Ushuaia. We saw it from the other side of the harbour, but these people hadn't seen it from a distance. They'd only arrived and gone onto the thing, and so there we are. That's it. It's obviously not a tourist boat, but it's been converted, and it's yeah, just a military-looking thing, isn't it? So we're on our way to do our first. Thought I'd take a photo of everyone, so I said hello. They all looked round, and I grabbed them. So there was normally about eight to a zodiac, and it was just allocated. It wasn't allocated. You just queued up in the morning and went down the ladder, and they just. So I lost Dave. Sometimes I was with him, and sometimes I was with other people, and we all got to know each other, and it was very nice. You can see everyone's got all the equipment. We had lectures on how to handle our cameras. It was really interesting. One of the lectures talked about bringing the cameras back. The inside of the boat was always at 25 degrees centigrade, so it's very warm. And almost immediately, the first thing that happened to all of us, we'd come back after our first sortie. We'd go back to our rooms to try and download our films. You know, obviously wanted to see what we'd captured on our first day. And the first thing that happens is the condensation. They just condense. And so you could go and visit people, and you would see them with their cameras in pieces, leaving them to dry out, because you can't do anything when they're wet. And I was surprised that there wasn't more damaged cameras, but they did. They made sure that we put them in plastic bags. You know, they told us it was going to happen and how to handle it. Take the batteries out so they didn't damage the camera as soon as you got back, and everything condensed up. So it was quite surprising. So we arrive and we set on. Unfortunately, the first sortie wasn't actually to Antarctica proper. It was to one of the islands. But nevertheless, this is Dave setting foot. He looks very pleased with himself, doesn't he? That's about as far as Dave goes with a grin. So that's the best grin. That's Dave saying, "This is bloody fantastic. I love it." Of course, it was quite strange. They chose one place, and it was really odd, because there was a hut. It turns out it was one of the storage areas for one of the experimental teams that go down there and do their work. People don't even stay there. And we thought we were all alone. You know, we were 65 odd degrees south, and we really expected that we were alone. But we come around a corner, and bing. This was actually, it turns out, our boat contacted them by radio. It was actually an Australian mob who I think you can see there's an Australian flag there. And they were an Australian mob who had sailed down, but they weren't coming out. They said, "Look, we're going to hide," and they just wanted us to go away, because they'd come down as well. They wanted the isolation and the excitement of being unique. And what happens? All these tourists turn up. Sorry, that's just me grabbing some water. My throat's starting to go sore. So, this place is Antarctica, and you take your camera and you go down and you start to see the first sortie, the second sortie, the third sortie. You're not. As I said, I'm not doing it chronologically, so these photos are all taken at various times. Not all the photos are by me. There's some from Dave, and I've actually taken. We get a CD at the end. When we got back to Australia, they posted us, they gave us a CD, and some of the photos are from other people. I've got acknowledgements at the end for that. But because you get out there, and the first thing you start doing is you just go click, 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 because it's just stunning. You can't take a bad photo. The weather, look at the blue skies. The weather was absolutely stunning. I have to say, we're there for 5 days with 2 days travel each way. Poor old Dave, he wanted to have some wild seas as we were crossing the Southern Ocean. He's a sailor, so he wanted to be in, 40 foot waves. On the way back we had some weather, but on the way down it was almost too calm for him anyway. And while we were there, I think there was only one day that it was actually the day we were starting to leave, and I've got some film of that later. But in the meantime, look at this place. I mean, we were actually told at one point, after about the third day, look, when you go on the next sortie, don't take your camera. Because you get caught into the idea, we're all just taking photographs all the time. When I got back, I had hundreds. In the preparation of this, I actually had to really carve them back, and I don't think I'm actually showing you the best ones, because I actually found it very difficult to choose. At the end of each day, and right at the end, we were allowed to upload our photos to the central server, and there was a bit of a competition to see who took the best photos. This was my best one. I didn't win anything. All I got was an honourable mention. I think if I'd got, I think that's the ship's bell, and it's in Antarctica. I think it's the best photo I've actually ever taken. But of course, it's slightly blurred, which I just took it. I didn't actually try to get it in focus. I wished I had, because I think it's memorable. And so here we are. It's Antarctica at its best. What am I doing? Oh, sorry, I've got my little speech on the other computer here. I just killed it. Yes, right. I'm just showing you the beauty of the place. We did get some weather. It did cloud over occasionally, as you can see there. I think that's near the end, just as one storm's coming in. But and that's from the inside of our room, out of our porthole. I've actually opened the porthole. Oh God, it's amazing. As I said, it was 25 degrees inside, and you open the porthole, and it's like 0 outside, and boom, it came in. But I wanted to get the nice clear image. We've now arrived. You remember I showed you the map. We were going to come in through the 2 islands, and we turned right, and we were going down the coast. And so both sides, doesn't matter, because there's islands. We were now between the islands to our right, which was to the west, and Antarctica to our left, which was to the east, as we were heading south down the peninsula. And so you'd go on a sortie. When you came back, you'd have lunch and you'd go into your room. It doesn't matter where you were. When you looked outside, you had something like that to look at. You get a bit blasé about it, which is a terrible shame, because you're only there for a few days, and by the time you come back, you think, oh, that was fantastic. So I suppose we are glad we took photos. That one isn't mine. I wished it were. I think that's absolutely stunning. I think that was towards the end, and you just start to get a bit blasé. Just to give you it'll come again in a minute, because I've got some more photos to show you, but the scale of that, that's about 100 meters height. That's the end of a glacier. So you can see, but look how still that water is. It's like a mirror. So yeah, prepare the next bit here. I think I'm about to go to a video. I'm not sure. Hang on. So, yep. Right. No, this is interesting. This little bit. So, there's me saying to myself, well, look, this is really beautiful. I've got to start capturing some of this. And that's fantastic. Okay. We went for a walk. Everybody else went over to see some piece of rock on the other side, and I decided I wanted to be alone. So I left the group and I walked round behind a rock. So I was away from everybody, and I just wanted to be alone in Antarctica, gazing out at the beauty without the sound of people. I didn't mind the sound of penguins, but I wanted to get away from the people, and I did. One of the guides came up to me afterwards and said, "Where did you go?" And he said it was extremely dangerous because I'd walked over the ice, and there could have been a crevasse. And in fact, at one point I did fall down a small crevasse. But nothing that was going to stop me from going to this. Look at it, it's stunning. So I decided, well, one of the best things I can do if I want to try and capture some of this, because I mean these are little squares, is to probably take a panorama. So I got myself to the point where I walked behind my rock, and then I didn't realise, this was on my way to my rock. So you can see that, look, there could have been a crevasse there and I could have fallen through. So I turn around, there's me, I've just come around my rock and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this is fantastic. And then I look and I go, bloody hell, there's our boat. I haven't really come away to a unique spot. There's the Vavilov. Oh, okay. But it just goes to show that, if anything happens, if you're down in Antarctica, that's your lifeline. Just in there behind, probably down there somewhere, are all the zodiacs. And that's it. Really, this is a very wild, very, very unique and very cold place. So this was my first attempt at a panorama. So there's one piece, there's another piece, and there's another piece. I mean, they are actually, I'll go back. Aren't they bloody beautiful? I mean, forget the Vavilov, look at that. That's absolutely stunning. I think that is probably one of the prettiest of all of them, because there's nothing human in it. Most of those mountains haven't been climbed, most of them haven't got names. So those three are my panorama. There it is, there's the Vavilov down there, and there's me. I stitched these together with a piece of software when I got back. I tried doing, my camera does take panoramas, but you need a stand, and I didn't have one. Otherwise you just can't get them. And you can see mine aren't very good because I've moved in the process. That was actually, I think, 5 or 6, or even, I think I did one that was 8. That might have been it, because I think the first one was an 8. So you take a click and you move a bit, click, 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 and then stitch them all together. Trouble is, of course, is that the width is limited, and so really you're still not getting the panorama because my screen isn't big enough to give you wraparound. You need sort of immersion or special glasses or something. Pretty stunning. So I did several of the panoramas. There's another panorama. That one was taken out of the back of the boat, and so there's our wake. I think that's a five shot as well. Just because it's just so pretty. And another one there. You can see all of the footprints there. That's from all the penguins. But I tried to. I realised that when I took a photograph, if there was of a panorama, if there was penguins in it, they were going to move, and so the effect was horrible. So I've only got those 3. I think that's all. Yep. So we come to the thing about Antarctica. Well, there's several things. One is, the first most important one is ice. And so they say that Eskimos have got, half a dozen words for snow. It isn't true, apparently. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did, and if they had just as many words for ice, because there's just so much ice and so much quality and types of ice. There's the Vavilov again. We've come away. We were actually going over this stuff, and you could hear our guide decided to power it up, and he was going to try and skim across the top. And we were slapping and banging on this ice. And I said afterwards, weren't you afraid that we might shear off the prop? And he said, well, yeah, that has happened once. He had to be towed back that day. But so yeah, and you could hear the prop hitting that ice as we were zooming along. It was pretty remarkable. In Antarctica, some of the ice there is really old, and they said to us that if the ice is blue, then it's 100,000 years or more old. So there we go. This is pretty old ice, and yeah. So the guide we were with at the time, he reached in the water, both hands, must have been bloody cold, and grabbed a big lump of ice and pulled it into the Zodiac, and took it back to the Vavilov. And that night, all of our drinks had ice in it, which was 100,000 years old. And you would taste it, and it just, I don't know if it was because of where we were, or what he'd said about the ice, but it was just so pure, it just tasted so wonderful. So yes, we were eating the Antarctic ice. Of course, Dave had already beaten us to it. This is him chewing on Antarctica. He wanted to have a caption that said, Antarctica, you've eaten it. So he's just quite happy chewing away at Antarctica. So the thing about it is that all this ice, this is a place where the ice breaks off and makes icebergs. Now I think I'm supposed to go to a video at this point. Let's see how we do that. Here we go. And what I'm trying to do with this video, and I'm not sure if it comes across, is to give a little feel for the scale of the place. This is the end of a glacier, and this is where we were hoping you'd see it. The classic shots you've seen, I'm sure, on Attenborough is those things there. They fall off. And it falls into the ocean to an amazing sound. We heard them, but we never saw one, which is a terrible shame. But we certainly heard them. Turn the sound up a bit.
What's the speed bumps there, Joe?
Oh, that was us hitting ice again. So yes,
Yeah.
I don't think it does give an impression of the size, to be honest. You have to know that we're probably a kilometre from that wall. So, yep, okay, so we go back. So probably the best thing, which is the next one, now that's more ice. What I should do is actually zoom in a bit. Here we go. This is to give you a better impression. There's a Zodiac with people in it. There's another one there. So, and they weren't allowed closer than 200 metres, because if any of this fell off, it was falling into the ocean. In fact, there was one really big one, and it fell in. We didn't see it, but we heard it. We looked round, and it had fallen in, and it had made this, well, you'd call it a tiny tsunami. It was actually a metre high, the wave that travelled. And he turned the boat turned the Zodiac in to face it, because we were going to get swamped by this thing. And the guys closer to it must have been, so there they are. So the guys close in there would have had a, well, we saw them ride it. It really was quite a surprise. So if I zoom back, there you are. So it's about a kilometre from us to the wall, and those guys are about 100 to 150 metres from the wall. This is where all the icebergs are made. It's called carving, so that the icebergs are carved here. And these are the ones that you see, the little, icebergs when they're sticking out the top, 1/8 at the top and 7/8 underneath. Island and tabular icebergs, like the one we saw earlier on, actually break off from huge. They're not carved from glaciers like these are. They actually break off from the huge amounts of ice. There was one broke off a few years ago, and they monitored it because they thought it was actually going to be a danger to shipping. It was nearly the size of Texas. Could you imagine that? Mate, absolutely stunning. So this is the ice, and it's the thing about it. We got taken one day. We did all these sorties, 2 a day, onto the ice. The one sortie that this is all taken from, we actually didn't get out of the Zodiac. So they just took us to a bay, and the currents in the locale that we were going to were such that when the icebergs carved off from the glacier, like you saw just then, actually the currents dragged them into this bay, and so they get stuck there. And it's not that deep, and some of them actually sit, depending on the tide, they can actually sit on the bottom, and they roll around, and there's some amazing effects as a result of that. This one's, yeah, that's probably a very good photo to show you. So there you have it. Now, you can see there's a line there. This is an iceberg, right? And it's rocked over. So there's a storm, and it's rolled over. So at one point, that line there was the line of the surface of the water. And as the water lapped, it ate away, there's a little bit of an edge there, it ate away all the ice, and so that was all above water, and this was underneath. And then at one point it rolled over a bit. Here again we've got effects of the tides and the wind. I think that's particularly lovely. And of course it's blue, so that means that one's at least 100,000 years old. Here we have them again. So they've run aground. Prior to them running aground, or maybe the tide's gone out. So the tide will actually, yes, that's probably it. So there you can see, and it's actually slightly at an angle, so that's probably one iceberg, because that was the water level at one point. I think they're beautiful. Look at the way they are. The blue is sort of in there. Very lovely. Another one of the same. This one looks like it's actually turned over completely 180, because that's all wind. We saw from the earlier one just now. That's all by the wind, and that's all actually probably was upside down. And it probably rolled over. I thought these looked like mushrooms. That's one iceberg slowly being eaten away. Gorgeous, aren't they? So, okay, the thing I guess is that, you know, in Antarctica, so there's ice. The other thing is the flora and fauna. Oh no, hang on, we haven't finished with the ice. Now here, look, there's several layers of erosion. Again, it's blue, so it's been there for a bloody long time. Okay, so we come to the flora and fauna. Now, there isn't very much flora. We did see evidence of well, no, there's no trees or plants to speak of. So there's only any kind of, I call them mushrooms, but there's various kinds of algae and stuff. So the fauna that we've got, this particular guy, they just, I think the thing I like about sea lions is that they've just got a face, and I think they're so gorgeous. They look at you, and their eyes are, this one's asleep. Their eyes just, where's the one I'm looking for? There it is. Look at the look on that guy's face. You know? And they, no fear. So early, you know, last century, they could be clubbed so easily. You just walk up to them and go smack. There's no fear. I think we should be up for some more videos. Look. Let me do the video. Here we go. These are, I think these are Gentoo penguins. Oh, something's gone wrong with my video sound. That's a shame. Maybe I should fast past that. This was one occasion when the weather really did come in. And look at that. They're not even, they don't even care, do they? You know, they're in their elements. They are there to, they live. They are designed to live there. I was trying to find ones that have gone into the water, but I've got a video later on of them entering the water. Some of that snow was going up horizontal at that point. It was freezing. And look at them, they don't care. They're just hanging around, chatting to each other. I love them. The way they walk is just glorious. I think they're beautiful. And what they tell you is that you shouldn't approach them. You have to stay 2 meters away from them. But the thing is, if they approach you, that's fine. So these three have walked. They ended up walking right up to me. Come on. Look at these guys. These guys are called chin straps. Look, for obvious reasons. Look at this guy. He's glorious. And they look so ungainly out of the water, as everyone says, but once they're in the water, of course, they're like aerofoils. They really are like, they're flying and they're birds. Yeah, cool. I'll come back to that, because that's another story. So here we are, we've got our little friend. Hang on, what am I supposed to do? Oh no. Oh, I've got to get the focus. There we go. Another Gentoo, have you seen him? There's my friend, the chin strap. I mean, how on earth do you evolve that, you know? And then they get the name chin strap. And look at these guys. This wasn't one of mine. I just had to include it because I think this won a prize on the day. There's the Vavilov obviously in the background there. And look at these guys saying, what's this over here? You know, they are just so trusting. The reason they tell you not to approach them is that because you could. I think the trick is that they're wild animals, but they're not wild. They are so friendly. They are just gorgeous, glorious creatures. I love them. And you know, you look at them and you go, oh no, look at you. You know, you look how he's put his arms away. You know, he's curled his toes up. You make a noise. You get their attention. So you make a noise. You whistle or something, and they look round. And it's really good. But they can also be seriously noisy. These guys were going off. I asked the guides, and I said, oh, are they doing it to fight for a girl? Are they doing it to protect their nest? No, they just do it because they're happy to be alive. And it's horrible noise. But they are very beautiful creatures. So sure of themselves in their world. And yeah, more luck. They aren't actually holding hands, but I think it's a beautiful shot. That isn't one of mine. I can't claim credit for that. I think it's absolutely stunning. A little guy and his girlfriend. But of course, I think it's time for another video. This particular thing is a bit sad, but we've got to understand that they're wild animals. What we've got here is the gulls. They're flying around in a lot of gulls there. I mean, a huge amount of gulls. I don't know what's going on with my video. It doesn't sound. I'll kill the sound because we don't actually need sound. And so they live in the rocks. These particular ones. and they obviously eat fish, and they go out and they get their fish and come back. There we are. Then there's the skuas. They actually attack them. And in this occasion, 2 skuas had brought down a seagull, and they drowned it. And once they drowned it, we were coming across it just as they'd done it. They'd just killed it, and you can't see what they're doing there, so we'll get a close-up of it. Because what they're actually doing is they're actually pulling its feathers out. And you can see all the feathers are floating away there, so that they can get to the flesh underneath. So they're doing what we would do, I guess, when you take a piece of poultry, you pluck all the feathers off. And yeah, there they are, they're doing that. And well, several of the people in the boat, there we go, close up. Several of the people in the boat were annoyed, distressed by it. But it's nature, it's a dangerous place. It's okay. So it's a dangerous place. And human beings go there at a risk. This was a whaler that didn't make it. It got, I think, several hundred people were lost. I think it's called a Gouvernorum. It's a reminder that it's a dangerous place. It's a beautiful, glorious, sunny day, and every now and again, if you can see there, look at that there, you have reminders. And once I saw that, I suddenly started to see them everywhere. That's another one. It's a different one, actually. Looks the same. You think to yourself, look at the effort that's gone into putting that there. To say your mates, your friends, your family died. I mean, they have to go away. They have to come back with these. You can't make that on a ship, I don't think. Particularly in the days when it was happening, because that's a metal one, obviously. So is that one. I like the way the soul penguin there was. That's not my shot. The soul penguin was sort of almost like respect. Yeah. So okay, so there's the ice, and there's the fauna. And the other thing that happened in Antarctica, of course, is the people. Us. We get down there. We put bases up. We go down there for research and political reasons. Oops, I just lost my notes again. I'll just get them back while I'm... oh, stop it. Now I've killed it completely. Okay. So we ended up going to 2 bases. Those are our zodiacs there. There's a couple there. There's one there, another one there. And this base here, we were here in late November, and so it was the beginning of the summer season. And most of the bases are only manned during the summer season. And so this is this is an Argentinian base. I think it's called Almirante Brown, and it's empty. It's empty most of the year. It's only occupied during the summer. They brought us here. You can see people up there and people here, and there they are. They're climbing up. So they brought us here to sort of have a look at it, to give us a climb. And we went up right up to the top of this rock there, just right up to the top, sat up top of that. Lovely view. And yeah, when I was showing my mum, God rest her soul, when I was showing her all of these photos, she said, "Oh, you're not showing very much of the people." Well, this was her favourite photo. This is my friend Dave. He's my mentor. He funded this entire trip. He paid for both of us to do this amazing trip. And again, that's about the best smile you get from Dave. Yes, somebody said, look, you'd like a photo? So yes, there was us. We were just about to climb up that thing, so they see the rest of the base is behind us, and the Vavilov is in the ocean, in the bay there. But yeah, and so of the photos that I've shown everybody, this is almost unanimously people's favourite. I think, oh, okay, gee, there's some beautiful things there, and that is not one of them. But anyway, so there's Dave on the right and me on the left there. You can still see us with our shades. The photos don't tell you how bright it is. And of course, with all that ice there, and I suppose I don't do very much skiing, but people who do tell me that you can actually get the bottom of your nose can get burned, and the underneath of your chin, if you're not careful, can get burned because the sun bounces off the ice and comes up at you from below. So yes, we had to wear our shades pretty much most of the time. There's the view from the top looking down. On the way back down, I decided that it was hard work walking, so I decided to scoot down on my arse and got up a good serious. Few people followed me after that, scooting down on our arses. Yes, and there it was. There's them at the top. So like I said, we went to 2 bases. This was the other one. This one's particularly interesting. This is called Vanadski Base. It was originally built by the Brits. Now, one of the things I said earlier is that you cannot approach the animals. You mustn't get too close to them. And the other rule that they have is that you leave nothing but footprints and take nothing but photographs. That is actually that idea is taken a lot further by the agreements that all of these signatories have of those who sign up to have bases in Antarctica. Because if you've had a base there, which the Brits did, they had this one here for several decades, and they decided that they had had enough, that they didn't need that base anymore, it was finished and they were going to leave. Well, they would have to take away every single piece that they brought down. That's every nut and bolt, everything. I said before that Ushuaia had all the buildings, every piece of building material had to be brought in. Well, the same here. But unlike Ushuaia, if here you want to leave the building, you have to dismantle it and take it away piece by piece. Well, the Brits decided that they would talk to everybody around, and the Ukrainians were there, and they wanted to have a base, and so the Brits sold this base to the Ukrainians for £1 British. I guess it was cheaper just to give it away. The pound was a token, obviously, but just to give it away was cheaper than having to dismantle it. So there's the it's now called the Academic. Everything down there is academic. The Academic Vavilov and the Academic Vanadski. And you can see that's 65 degrees south, 64 degrees west. When I think about where I've been, and I always think to myself, 64 south, 64 west, so 65, 65. 64 is what I think. And this was the most southerly part. Remember that map that I showed where we were going to go? This is the end of it. From here we turn around and start heading north again. So the furthest south we've been was 65. I had actually been very disappointed by that because the Antarctic Circle is at 66 degrees. And I said to people, we're just going to miss out on get going. And they said, look, it's just a line on the map. The thing is, it isn't. It's the point at which the constant light during the summer, the sun doesn't set, and in the winter the sun doesn't rise. So if you're south of 66, you're south of the Antarctic Circle. And so we were about a degree away, which is, I don't know, I think it's only about 50 kilometres, at that latitude. It might be 80 actually. So yes, I was very disappointed that we weren't going to get to 66. I wasn't going to be able to log it on my GPS. But that's Verdansk, and they when the Brits were there, you had a lot of time, of course, and one of the things that they had was time to build a bar. And one particular chap, you had an allocation of a certain amount of transport of wood and stuff as the ships provided all the supplies. You could have a certain amount of weight, and over time he got all that wood there was sent down to him piece by piece by piece, and he slowly built an English bar, an English pub in the base at 65 degrees south in Antarctica, which of course is now run by the Ukrainians, and they do a very nice vodka. They claim that they make it themselves. Hang on, have a drink. Oh, yeah, they claim that they make it themselves. I don't think that they would be allowed to. Besides, they'd have to import an awful lot of potatoes. But they do, and they sell the drinks, at silly prices. And they encourage the women to give them their bras. There's a couple of bras there. And donate anything, so it's just a tourist trap. An interesting thing they do, and I've got one of them as myself, is they put a stamp in your passport. Obviously, Antarctica isn't a country, and it's one of the few places in the world where you can go and be on land and not be in a country. And so we were able to leave our passports with them when we first arrived. They gave us a tour of the whole place. We were there for several hours, had all our drinks, and then on the way out we picked up our passports, and we'd got a stamp. So I've got a stamp in my passport that says I've been to Antarctica. That's the only non-legal stamp in the passport that you're allowed to have. I don't know how they got the permission to do that. So yes, so that was that. We reached the south. There is it's not a very good photo. It isn't one of mine. That is the English pound. Been super glued to the bar, just as a token, obviously, of the price paid by the Ukrainians for the place. We actually left, climbed onto the Zodiacs, and got back to the ship. And we were about to head off, and an alarm went off, and we were asked to check in, and we did, and it turns out that one of our number was missing. Now they obviously counted the people out and counted them back, and there was a bit of a mix-up because they weren't sure, but there was one missing. They knew there was one missing. They didn't actually know who it was. Anyway, the thing about the place in Antarctica is, even though we weren't beyond the Arctic Circle, it was very, very, very light. And so the day was 22 hours long. And so you often found that your sleeping got disturbed, and a lot of people had to approach the doctor for sleeping tablets. Anyway, this particular guy, he'd gone to the loo during the time we were there, and sitting on the loo, he'd fallen asleep. We'd all left, climbed into the Zodiacs, gone back to the boat, and they had to send a Zodiac back. They radioed actually out into the station, and they'd found him. He was sitting on the loo, fast asleep, and so they had to send a Zodiac back to pick him up. And as I said, it's 20 hours. At the time we were there, it was 20 hours. So that there is a photo. It was a terrible photo, but what was the next one? I think it's that one. One of these two, doesn't matter. That's a prettier one. I couldn't sleep. I went up to the bar, and it was midnight, and the sun was just about to set. And the sun sets at midnight. There it is, going into the ocean. And it rises again at 3 o'clock. Quite remarkable. I think later in the season, particularly they do actually do tours that go right further down south. So you get to the point where you are actually 24 hours a day sunlight. What they call the midnight sun. Glorious though, isn't it? So we're on our way back. So that's where the base was there. We had originally sailed in here between the two islands and then been stopping, seeing stuff. Well, then we set off. The next visit was planned, but the captain told us at dinner one night, through a translator because he didn't speak English, that he was going to do two things on the way back. We were leaving Antarctica, so all the rules about, don't disturb the place stopped as we were leaving. I think we're still in Antarctic waters there, but by the time we get there, we're not. So he wanted to do two things. He was going to take us to a particular spot, which is there. We're going to come to that in a minute. And the other thing he wanted to do was, on the way back, he wanted to do something very special that all the sailors on board would get excited about. So we're on our way to this. It's an island in the South Shetland. It's one of the South Shetland islands, and it's called Deception Island. And we're going to go there. Here, I've put this out of sequence, which is a shame, but this is a shot from the International Space Station. This is a photograph and it's taken at an angle of 15 degrees. So here's the larger island of the Shetlands. There's Deception Island, where we're about to go to. We had originally, there's the two islands that we'd sailed in between and turned right and gone down there. And then we'd come all the way back up here, and we're on our way to Deception Island. It's a very unusual shot because it really squashes up everything up. So it looks like they're not very far, but I mean, the distance from there to there is nearly 200 kilometres. So that's an amazing shot from the International Space Station. I only saw that recently, and I thought I had to put it in there. So Deception Island. Why is it called Deception Island? Well, there it is. There's the map. And the thing about it is that you can sail round this island, and unless you know what you're looking for, you would never know that there's actually an inside to it, and a very narrow entranceway. And so it's called Deception Island because even in the times of Napoleon had known about it, and he would get his fleet in there, and then they would come out and attack people. During World War II, the Germans used to hide in here with their submarines and their frigates, etc. That's probably not one of theirs, but anyway. Because they couldn't be seen by radar, obviously hiding in there, they could come out and attack people. The reason it's that shape is in fact that it's a volcano. Now, okay, there are a lot of islands in the world that are volcanoes, but this one's particularly special because it's active. It's actually an active volcano. It last erupted in 1969. In fact, twice. In 1967 it erupted, and in 1969 it erupted. And in the 1969, it actually destroyed most, there's still some, we'll see that in a minute, but destroyed most of the human evidence. It had been used, as I say, for military purposes, but it had also been used as a whaling station. And all around here, there was even a bit of a runway there. All around here, we'll see it in a minute, is evidence of the tanks that they used. They'd bring the whales in and they would treat them there, right there, and then turn them into oil. And so, yeah, this is an active volcano. The fact that it's only 1969 since it last blew was amazing. So the captain said that the entranceway, there it is, that's the width of it, but right in the middle there's a rock which is actually exposed at low tide. So he has to go in through there, and he only has a few metres each side. So that's one of the reasons he wanted to do it, so he could tell all his mates that he'd done it. And that it is actually a very tricky manoeuvre, apparently. You sort of go in there and turn right. And there are the the remains of the tanks and all the rotting equipment. You can see it's all rusted and no one's taken it away. So unlike Antarctica, where they had to take everything away, on Deception Island, because it's not under the same rules, they could just leave it. But as I say, it's a volcano. There was a walk. There was going to be a walk up to the nipple. That's it there, for obvious reasons. It looked like an... And so I decided to join, and we were going to walk up to this rock, across that rock, down a bit, along behind there, up a bit of a valley to the top. It really was a lot further than I realised. That was fun, that knife edge there. I was quite nervous about it. Everyone else strolled across it, but 45-degree drop on each side. So we got up to, there's our rest of our party. This is me. I took this on my way back because I abandoned them there. And there's somebody else who's also given it a miss, and they're following me. Dave's among those folk there. But there, look up there, that's them. The rest of them. I'll zoom in. Oops, no, I don't think. Go back. No, I'm doing the wrong thing. There's the zoom. There we go. Look. That's people. That's all of them trying to get to there, the nipple. So yeah, there we were trying to climb up this thing, and didn't get very far. At least I did. I was on my way back. There's Dave with the rest of the party that I left behind, and they took photographs from there. And look at that. That's the view from where they were sitting. Very pretty. There's the Vavilov in the middle. This is the caldera of the volcano. As I say, it is a real volcano. And there's the evidence. Look at the steam. It's still hot enough underneath the water and underneath the sand all around. It's still hot enough to heat everything up. It's amazing. You're standing around and everyone's got their caps off and it's unzipping their suits. It really is warm enough. There's the penguins there. I'm sure they come in because they would probably love the feeling. Now, obviously, I had hurt my feet at this point, and I limped back to the Zodiac, and the doctor was there, and he checked me out, and he said, right, I'm taking you back to the boat. So I got a priority ride back to the ship on the Zodiac. So I missed out on the last part. But that part was that those that were going to be brave enough could actually struggle out of their clothes and go for a swim. The argument being that the water was going to be warm. People have done it historically. So there's Dave. There's Dave going in for a swim. And you look at that photograph and you can say, what's wrong with that photograph? Now, nothing when the photograph of people going for a swim until you look behind them and you can see that there's snow. So what on earth are these people doing? Anyway, Dave has he splashes around in the water, then decides he's coming out. He ran out. It was freezing apparently. But, you know, really still warm in terms of the Southern Ocean. I mean, looking where they are, it's very, 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 very cold. So the fact that he went swimming at all, I'd promised to film him, so he got somebody else. This is actually a part of a film, but so I've just showed Dave coming out. So where are we? Ah, yes. Okay, so I went up to the library and I was reading about this particular place, and there's on the outside of the island there's a place called Bailey Head. Bailey Head is very famous for a colony of penguins that are there, and it's been used for research many, many times. And so we were going to attempt landing. Apparently, only 1 out of 10 landings is ever successful. So that's 9/10 of them fail. And we thought, are we going to be, we're going to give it a go. and see how we how we can make it. And the storm comes in, or started. There it is there. It's, oh mate. But I think this is where I have to go and get a video. Yeah, this is Dave's video. Remember I said before that getting in and out of these things was like a military operation. This is the end now. We've been there for 5 days. We've done, what, 5 days, 2 sorties is 10 sorties. That means we went in and out of them twice each time. So that's on 20 occasions. So we've done this 19 times. This is the last time. This is the 20th occasion. We're doing an approach to a place that they didn't know at that stage. I'd been to the library and I knew that this was particularly dangerous. And this is Dave's film. And I'll go back and start that again. And you can see everyone moving up in a military fashion, jumping off and casually walking away, because we've all done it so often now that we know exactly what we're doing. So there we are. That was Dave's. And then just they pushed the Zodiacs back out, took them out about 50 metres and tied them all together. Because they just couldn't leave. They would normally leave them on the beach, but the weather was such that they really couldn't leave them on the beach. So, yeah, that's it. So, where are we? And this was another occasion. This isn't my photograph, but I captured it because of what the story is behind it. Is that that's the guide in question. That was his. This is his. And these are the guys with the whites are the guides. And that's just one of us. And he brought it in, got everyone off, and a huge wave came in, spun the Zodiac right round. This guy here, and he was thrown actually. He was thrown, and it's rising again. This guy here grabbed the boats on one of these things here. And we were in the bar with him that night, and he'd broken his thumb. He'd grabbed onto the thing, and it had wrenched him, and he broke his thumb. So, oops. So yes, so this is the colony of penguins. That is some of them going home. That's the black ones. That's their backs, and some of the others are coming down. There it is. There's the hill. That staining you can see is their shit, and it stinks. We actually walked up there, down the other side, and there's a whole colony of them there. And I got a bit bored with watching them all just wandering around because I was particularly interested in watching them entering and leaving the ocean. So I came all the way back down. And so these ones facing this way are all coming down here to go for a feed, and these ones going back up are all, they've already had their feed. Oh. Now this was the last photo, but I've shown you now. This isn't mine either, but the composition of this is absolutely stunning. That's one of our guides. He hasn't got the right suit on, but he is. He's got the radio. There's the Vavilov in the back, and it's like they've had a row. He's had a row with his friend, the chin strap. And it just goes to show that the tiny little guys, these chin straps, and he's a bit bored. So what I want to do now is show you, we had the military landing. Let's go and capture shots. Oh no, my film's gone all funny. Yeah, the sound's gone funny. So what happens is they go down and they don't go in by ones. They all jump in together. They all wait for each other to go. If they don't make it, then they come back out and have another go. Those little spots are actually snow. This was the shot you saw earlier on when I was saying that the snow was going horizontally, and it's very wild here. And just watching these guys going for a feed, the effort. Particularly when they're on the land, getting into the water is just hard work. And then they've got to come out. This is them all coming out. And so they try and ride the wave there. Look at that, porpoising all the way in, and then the wave goes, and that's it. They've got to run up the beach before the next wave comes and possibly grabs them. Yeah, but they are absolutely gorgeous. There we go. That was the end of all the videos. So, as I said, that was Bailey Head, and particularly a rare treat for us, knowing that most of the tours that go down there don't get to land. And so this is us. There we all are. They were going to have a party that night, and as I say, I damaged my feet, and I was actually in our cabin, and one of the guys came and said, "You got to come, you got to come." So there's me and Dave. You don't know, but I'm in bare feet. Well, I've actually got socks on, but I haven't got any shoes on because I had my feet up. And so he said, "You've got to come. We're having the family photograph." So that's everybody except the captain and the crew. So once you get them all together, you think, bloody hell, there was a lot of people. But it's such a huge ship. And because the Zodiacs were going out on a constant run, you didn't really see them all together. And on the first few days, half of those people didn't come down to dinner because they were so seasick. And then on the way back too, the return trip was really quite rough. And we'd go down to dinner and there'd only be about 20 people. So it was quite a surprise to realise exactly how many of us there were. So as I said, there's me and Dave, and Rick with his bare feet hidden away. So, okay, the captain had these two little things he wanted to do. He'd done the one, which was to show us Deception Island. And this was so there's Deception Island, obviously there's Ushuaia, and we would normally sail from there. We would just go back up to the Beagle Channel and home. But he didn't. He headed west, a long way west, well, quite a long way west, because he wanted to do something special. Now, the doctor that we had on board was Chilean. And I think he did this because he had a Chilean doctor, a doctor from Chile. Now that's Argentina there, and that's a bit of Argentina there, but the rest of this is Chile, Chilean land. Any of you that know your geography will know that there is Cape Horn. And Cape Horn has a name, of course, for being particularly famous to anyone who sails. If you sail around the world, you have to come round Cape Horn, and it's considered to be some of the most dangerous waters in the world. Anyway, it's Chile, and you're not allowed to go close to it because you're in Chilean international waters. So the captain asked our doctor if he wouldn't mind radioing. There's a military base nearby, and get permission. And we got permission. And there it is. That's and we're only about 2 kilometres out. And it cleared a bit, and you could see that there's a thing at the top there, which is a plaque, a monument to all the people who've lost their lives here. And once again, Dave was disappointed because look how calm. I mean, it really isn't. But for where we are, you know, I mean, we're talking about Cape Horn. This is Cape Horn. Normally, the waters here are 50-foot waves, and we arrive and it's like this. Look at it. So that's it. And the trick was he wanted to go west, so that was over there, so that he could then sail round here. In other words, he'd sailed round Cape Horn. And Dave advises that if you actually sailed in a sailboat, not so much a motorboat, but if you sail around, you get all sorts of rights in the Navy. You can drink with, and sing songs, dirty songs in various places where ordinary sailors who haven't are not allowed to do. And every single sailor that's ever sailed around the world, in a race or a record breaker or whatever, has come past here. So what an amazing place. And so we go back, we sail back up the Beagle Channel to the Ushuaia, we disembark. We actually have to go through customs again because we're actually been out of Argentina. It was amazing to come from Antarctica and go through customs. And so here we are. This is it. This is the departure lounge of the Ushuaia airport, and me and Dave are just making our way to the departure gate. And I thought I'd take a photo here. Just there's all the nuts and bolts. Every single one of those nuts and bolts had to be brought in one by one, and it's just a symbolic representation of us saying goodbye. And so we climb on a plane and we fly away to continue our travels. We're on our way to the Amazon and beyond. For that, as they say, is another story. So, special thanks to Dave Brooks, my friend and mentor. He's got a log of it, the whole trip. There's the link. Thanks to Peregrine Adventures for the people who took us, who have an office nearby in Perth. And that was my trip to Antarctica. Of all of the photos, Dave and myself took all of them and the videos, except for a bundle of images. Those are the images. They're the numbers of the particular slide. So I'm saying, if anyone sees their image in this and they're upset, then please, I'll remove it. Thank you. Goodbye.